Hello people! So how are y'all holding up in this difficult time of social isolation? I'm guessing exactly like us, you also have time to catch up with all your books, TV series, or your to-do list. And be sure to add to your to-watch list the playlists on our channel, because not only do we make videos about breakups and marriages of the stars, but also mysterious crimes and famous people who get in trouble with the law. So are you curious to know what the topic of today's video is? The same topic that everybody is talking about now. Yup. The Netflix series new hit Tiger King. Hit the bell and subscription button and stay with me to find out about all the secrets that weren't shown in the production and things we should know before watching the most bizarre but also addictive stories. So recently, there's been this very popular show on Netflix, The Tiger King, Murder, Mayhem, Madness, which is watched by many people, including famous stars such as Chrissy Teigen, Cardi B, Lucy Lawless, Colin Hanks, and Kim Kardashian. The stars share their thoughts about this controversial documentary and even take different sides about his story. Cardi B tweeted, "About to start a GoFundMe account for Joe. He shall be free." While James Woods said, "When I was halfway through watching Tiger King, my friend said he thought he wanted all of them to get eaten by tigers. I just finished watching the whole documentary. I understand what he meant. But why do you think this series is receiving so much attention and it triggers so many emotions?" Well, the producers of the already well-known Netflix movie Fire worked together again and this time created a documentary about Joseph Maldonado-Passage, whom you all better might know as Joe Exotic or the Tiger King. He ran an entertainment park in Oklahoma for exotic animals, including hundreds of lions, tigers, bears, and lemurs. He was also in a polygamous relationship, released a country music album, and commissioned the killing of animal rights activist and owner of a large cat sanctuary, one of the biggest rivals, Carol Baskin from Florida. He wanted to be like a modern P.T. Barnum, who was also portrayed in the movie The Great Showman with Hugh Jackman and Zac Efron in the cast. But his problems really appeared when the activist stood in his way. So what was the story exactly? Joseph Allen Maldonado-Passage was born as Joseph Allen Schrevogel in Garden City, Kansas on March 5th of 1963. He lived and grew up on the farm, and from the beginning he was interested in animals, mostly horses, cows, chickens, dogs, and cats, but also raccoons, porcupines, and young American pronghorn, which he was catching. He thought that people are the cruelest creatures in the world because, as he only claims, at the age of 5, he was raped by an older boy at his own house. So Joe wanted to be a vet. He was bringing all the animals home and was keeping them in the house. But after finishing school, he became a police officer. He got the job in the small town in Texas. And in 1985, Joe tried to take his own life by driving a police car off the bridge. No one actually has confirmed this, but he has a picture of the destroyed car. And as he said, that was the moment of his new beginning. He changed his career path to a shop assistant in pet stores, and in 1989, together with his brother Gerald and his then partner, he opened his own business in Arlington, Texas. Everything was going quite smoothly until 1997, when Joe's brother died in a car accident. From the money received as part of a court settlement with a transport company whose driver caused the accident, Gerald's wife wanted to build a playground for local kids in honor of her husband. But Joe convinced her that his brother's dreams was to go to Africa and see wild animals. So to fulfill his will, Joe's idea was to bring some to the US, and Joe had bought an old horse farm in Winhood, Oklahoma, where he began building a zoo. He named it, of course, in honor of his brother, Gerald Wayne Exotic Animal Memorial Park, in short, GW Zoo. And the zoo quickly gained new residents, and in the beginning, it was a deer, buffalo, and bear, and over time, people themselves began sending Joe exotic animals they once owned, and whose maintenance became boring, too expensive, or too dangerous. And so in 2000, 2 tigers appeared in the zoo. Because according to the New York Magazine, American laws on wildcats are a bit weak. To even be able to purchase such a pet, you need an exhibitor's license issued by the US Department of Agriculture, which costs $40. And according to the magazines, more tigers live in captivity in America than in the wild. Joe, however, offered something more in his reserve. Instead of glass barriers, animals were kept in cages. so visitors could feel their closeness on their own skin. Also, things between these animals and humans often ended in extremely bad conditions and abuse. The descriptions of the incidents are so drastic that we will not describe them here, but you should know that they exceeded human imagination. And with time, however, Joe began letting the bolder people into the cages. Keeping the zoo, however, became more expensive, and despite sponsors or help from grocery stores, Joe was thinking of some new solution. So he began to ride with an adult tiger around local marts and fairs and collected money for taking a picture with it. Later, because this became dangerous, he changed the animal into small, cute tigers. People actually paid $25 to hold the wild kitten in their arms for 6 minutes, and another $25 for a photo with it, and Joe traveled further and further around the country. However, because the animals were growing up quickly, new puppies were still needed. But wait, there's more. In 2003, Joe saw a liger in the Oklahoma Zoo, a hybrid of a male lion and a female tiger. Such animals do not happen in nature so much, so the man was very impressed. So he soon immediately combined a pair of tigers with lions, and soon he got such a hybrid himself. Joe began to experiment further, and the first Lilliger appeared in his zoo, half lion, half liger, and later Tilliger and even Tilliliger. The hybrids grew up to big sizes, the largest weighed even 400 kilograms. Joe, on the other hand, dreamed that he would recreate the prehistoric saber-toothed tiger, although biologists agreed that it was absurd. Undaunted by this, Joe built an empire, a 6-hectare field. He had over 1,000 animals. He also ran a souvenir shop where he sold t-shirts, Joe Exotic skincare products, and even drinks and condoms. Over time, he opened the Safari Bar located 3 kilometers from the zoo, and then Zooter's Pizzeria. You may not know, but Exotic applied for the president's chair and later for the governor's seat. But where does the nickname come from? Joe changed his name many times during his life, often taking it from his current partners. There were times when he was in relationships with several partners at once, with their full knowledge. And so his different names were Joe Maldonado, Joe Passage, Aaron Alex, and Cody Ryan. But ultimately he called himself Joe Exotic, or simply the Tiger King. Of course, with such popularity, Joe's zoo began to attract the interest of the media. Authorities and animal rights activists who were talking more and more loudly about the tragic living conditions of their living creatures. In 2006, the Department of Agriculture suspended Joe's license for 2 weeks and fined him $25,000 because of many violations, including a lack of proper veterinary care. PETA, on the other hand, published a film about neglecting animals and the shameful behavior of their reserve employees. And at the same time, the whole thing intensified the conflict between Joe and Carol Baskin, the not less controversial founder of the Big Cat Rescue Foundation and animal activist. The woman attacked Joe for cruelty to creatures and fiercely tried to break down Exotic's activities. Angry Joe openly threatened to her death and confessed to doing things like filling her mailbox with venomous snakes. And what's more, in his song, Joe accused Carol of killing her husband, who incidentally died in a very vague way and to this day's circumstances. Once Joe was fined $1 million in court for stealing Big Cat Rescue trademarks. And yet, in 2018, the kingdom of Joe Exotic came to an end. Joe filed for bankruptcy and handed the zoo over to Jeff Lowe, a man with a criminal past and allegations of domestic violence. Lowe dismissed Exotic from work, gradually liquidated the zoo, and took the animals to another facility. Joe, on the morning of September 7th of 2018, which was 81 days after leaving the reserve and while he was looking for a new job, was arrested by police officers and charged with attempting to plan the murder of Carol Baskin. According to Texas Monthly Reports, Joe ordered the deprivation of a woman's life to one of the FBI agents. So, for attempted murder, animal abuse, falsification of documents, and even killing 5 tigers, Joe Exotic was sentenced to 22 years in prison. So this Netflix show primarily focuses on the conflict between the two characters Joe Exotic and Carol Baskin, and actually it's quite difficult to sympathize with them. Even if they are on opposite sides of the barricade, they both have their secrets and many sins on their conscience. But maybe that's why the story ignites viewers' imagination so much. The plot is both cruel and addictive, and what makes it even more interesting is that it's based on real events. Even actor David Spade, who apparently is obsessed with the documentary, interviewed some of the former zoo employees to get the truth and facts that were missing in the show. He talked, for example, with John Finlay, one of Joe's Exotic's romantic partners. The man said to the actor that the film is mostly about big cats, while some other animals had a sad story too. He claims that some of the alligators at the exotic animal park came from Michael Jackson's Neverland Ranch, and that working with the crocodiles and alligators was more dangerous than working with the tigers. In one of the episodes, NBA star Shaquille O'Neal briefly shows up. Because of that, Shaq decided to make things right, and on March 25th, he said that on the big cast that he loves tigers and visited the park a few times, but first of all, he was not a pal with Joe, and secondly, he had no idea of all the stuff that was going on. The famous basketball player also added that he never had any business dealings with Exotic. Also, Baskin, who is still running Big Cat Rescue, refutes to how she was portrayed in the documentary. She said the directors did not care about the truth. The unsavory lies are better for getting viewers. However, since the documentary dropped, Carol is facing some harsh criticism. But her husband, Don James' disappearance remains a mystery, and after the premiere of the Netflix series Hillsborough, Florida Sheriff Chad Chronister even tweeted out a request for anyone with leads in the case to call him. So what about the main character? Like, Joe Exotic knows that the show has made him famous and he just loves it. And according to one of the filmmakers, he's absolutely thrilled. And what's more, he has reportedly filed a $94 million lawsuit against several government agencies. And according to People magazine, he wants nearly $74 million in loss of personal property, 18 years of research, and the full care of 200 generic tigers and crossbreeds, as well as $15 million for false arrest, false imprisonment, selective enforcement, and death of his mother Shirley. Maybe we will learn more from the upcoming miniseries based on Wondery's podcast Joe Exotic Tiger King, hosted by Robert Moore, who spent 4 years interviewing Joe Exotic and Baskin. The owner of Big Cat Rescue will be played by Kate McKinnon, who is also an executive producer of the series that is not associated with Netflix's popular documentary. Now, what do you guys think? Have you seen the documentary? Do you find it interesting or only entertaining? Whose side are you on? Tell us all in the comments, and remember to like, share, and follow us on Instagram, and become part of our Curious Sips family by subscribing to our channel. Until next time.